My sister manipulated her fiancé, so I exposed her. Now she's furious. I can't believe she actually seated us here, I muttered under my breath as I took in the sight of the table. The corner of the room, secluded from the main party, was hardly decorated compared to the lavish center tables. My husband, Alex, gave me a sidelong glance, his lips pressed into a thin line, but he said nothing. He knew me well enough to sense the storm brewing inside. We had arrived at my sister Veronica's engagement party a little late, but that didn't seem to matter. The venue was breathtaking. Chandeliers sparkling above, floral centerpieces adorning every table, and servers dressed in formal attire gliding through the room, balancing trays of drinks and hors d'oeuvres. Everything screamed opulence, which was expected. Veronica had made sure to emphasize how grand the event would be, thanks to her fiancé James's deep pockets. As soon as we entered, my parents waved enthusiastically from a table near the center of the room. We began making our way toward them when Veronica intercepted us, her perfectly manicured hand lightly resting on my arm. "Oh, hey. Glad you made it," she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Your table is over there." She pointed toward the far corner of the room, away from the main crowd. "Over there? Why aren't we sitting with Mom and Dad?" I asked, puzzled. Veronica's smile tightened. "Well, you know how it is. We're trying to keep things organized. Besides, James's family is very well-to-do, and we want them to mingle with people of their caliber." I blinked, trying to process what she had just said. Alex, ever the calm one, gently squeezed my hand in a silent plea to let it go. But I couldn't, not this time. "So you're saying we're not good enough to sit with your in-laws?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "Don't be dramatic," she snapped, her tone low but sharp. "It's just better this way. Please, don't make a scene." Without waiting for a response, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Alex and me standing there stunned. With a resigned sigh, we made our way to the table she had indicated. I could feel the heat of embarrassment crawling up my neck. Veronica had always been difficult, but this was a new low, even for her. "It's fine," Alex said quietly as we sat down. "Let her have her moment." "It's not fine," I hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "She did this on purpose. She wants to humiliate us." "Maybe. But we don't have to let her succeed," Alex said, his calm voice soothing despite my irritation. Before I could respond, James approached us, his expression brightening as he saw Alex. "Mr. Hamilton. Wow, what a surprise. What are you doing here?" James's reaction caught both Alex and me off guard. He seemed genuinely delighted to see my husband, which was not the reaction I had expected. "You know each other?" Veronica's voice cut through the moment as she hurried over, her expression wary. "Of course," James said, grinning. "Alex's company has been one of our biggest clients for years." "I didn't know he was your brother-in-law." Veronica's face drained of color as the realization hit her. She had seated us in the far corner to make a point, but now that point was backfiring spectacularly. I watched her struggle to regain her composure, but it was clear she was rattled. "Well, small world," she said weakly, her usual confidence faltering. James turned back to us, his tone apologetic. "I'm so sorry for this. You should be sitting with us up front. Let me fix this right now." "No need," Alex said smoothly before I could say anything. "We're fine here. We don't want to cause any trouble." James looked genuinely concerned, but he nodded. "If you're sure. But please, let me know if there's anything I can do." As he walked away, Veronica shot me a look that could have frozen lava. I met her glare head-on, refusing to back down. For once, she was the one caught off guard, and it felt satisfying. "You think you're so clever," she hissed as soon as James was out of earshot. "Don't push me, Claire." "I don't have to push you," I said quietly. "You're doing a fine job of ruining things on your own." She opened her mouth to retort, but thought better of it. With one last glare, she spun on her heel and stormed off. Alex leaned over, his voice low. "You okay?" "I will be," I said, exhaling slowly. "This isn't over, though." He smiled faintly. "No, it isn't." Veronica and I grew up in a small rundown house on the outskirts of town. Our parents worked tirelessly to make ends meet, often taking double shifts just to put food on the table. Life was tough, but we managed, clinging to each other through the hard times. Despite our shared struggles, Veronica and I couldn't have been more different in how we approached life. I poured myself into my studies, determined to escape the cycle of poverty. It wasn't easy, but eventually I earned a scholarship to a prestigious university and later landed a stable, well-paying job. Veronica, on the other hand, took a different route. Blessed with striking looks and a charismatic personality, she quickly learned how to use them to her advantage. While I was buried in textbooks, she was out charming her way into relationships that provided her with the lifestyle she craved. Our paths diverged further as we grew older. I met Alex, a humble yet incredibly successful businessman, and built a life grounded in love and hard work. Veronica, meanwhile, bounced from one wealthy boyfriend to another, never settling long enough to build something lasting. "She's always resented you," Alex said one evening after Veronica had shown up at our door, fresh from another breakup and in need of a place to stay. "I know," I admitted, sighing. "But she's my sister. What am I supposed to do?" "Sometimes loving someone means setting boundaries," he said gently. I knew he was right, but setting boundaries with Veronica was easier said than done. She had a way of making you feel guilty, of twisting situations until you questioned whether you were in the wrong. And despite everything, a part of me still wanted to protect her. But this time at her engagement party, something shifted. Her blatant attempt to humiliate us in front of her new in-laws crossed a line I didn't even know I had. "She's not used to people standing up to her," Alex said, breaking the silence as we left the party that night. "Especially not you." "Well, she'd better get used to it," I said firmly. "Because I'm done letting her walk all over me." He smiled, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "Good. You deserve better." As days passed after the engagement party, the tension in the air remained palpable. Veronica, determined to salvage her relationship, continued reaching out to James. However, her pleas went unanswered. Meanwhile, I and my husband decided to focus on moving forward, refusing to let the incident ruin our peace. One evening while we were having dinner, my phone buzzed. It was James. Surprised, I quickly picked up the call. "Hey, I hope I'm not disturbing you," he said, his voice sounding hesitant. "Not at all, James. How are you?" I replied. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he began, his tone serious. "I feel like I need some clarity, and I was wondering if we could meet, just the three of us." After a brief discussion with my husband, we agreed to meet James for lunch at our place the following weekend. I could sense that James was genuinely seeking answers, and I respected his desire to understand the truth. The weekend arrived, and James showed up right on time. Dressed simply, he looked a bit weary but determined. After exchanging pleasantries, we settled in the living room. I could tell he was nervous. I want to thank you both for agreeing to meet me, James began, looking at us earnestly. I need to understand who Veronica really is. I feel like I've been living in a world of lies, and I don't want to make any more mistakes. I took a deep breath and began recounting everything: our childhood struggles, Veronica's pattern of behavior, and her tendency to manipulate people for her benefit. My husband chimed in occasionally, offering his perspective on Veronica's interactions with us. James listened intently, nodding occasionally but saying little. When we finished, he sat back, processing everything. I had no idea, he finally said, his voice heavy with disbelief. She made me believe she was someone entirely different. I don't know how I missed the signs. Love makes us blind sometimes, my husband said gently. But what's important is what you choose to do now. James looked at us with gratitude. Thank you for your honesty. I need some time to think. A few days later, word spread that James had officially called off the engagement. Veronica was furious. She showed up at our house, demanding to know why we had meddled in her life. You ruined everything, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Why couldn't you just stay out of it? I stood my ground, my voice calm but firm. Veronica, you can't build a life on lies. James deserved to know the truth. You think you're better than me, don't you? She spat, her eyes blazing with anger. Just because you have a perfect life and a perfect husband. This isn't about who's better, I replied. It's about respect and honesty. You hurt people, Veronica, and you never take responsibility for it. It's time for that to change. Realizing she was getting nowhere, Veronica stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for my sister, who was trapped in a cycle of her own making, and relief that I had finally stood up for myself. Life slowly returned to the normal. James stayed in touch, occasionally seeking advice as he navigated the aftermath of his broken engagement. My parents, initially upset by the situation, came around after understanding the full story. Veronica, on the other hand, distanced herself from the family. It was painful but necessary. I hoped that one day she would reflect on her actions and find a way to change. As for my husband and me, we continued to focus on building a life filled with love and integrity. The experience had strengthened our bond, reminding us of the importance of standing by each other, no matter the circumstances. Months later, we received a letter from Veronica. In it, she apologized for her behavior and admitted that she needed help. She expressed a desire to rebuild her life and mend her relationship with the family. I was skeptical but hopeful. People can change if they truly want to, and perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter for Veronica. What do you think? I asked my husband after showing him the letter. I think it's a start, he said with a smile. But only time will tell. We decided to take things slow, giving Veronica the space to prove herself. It wouldn't be easy, but we were willing to try. In the end, life is about second chances. And while trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild, it's never too late to begin again.